Hello everybody, welcome to today's edition of the Daf Yomi. Today's Daf is doing Shevuot Daf 46 Amud A. I'm coming from a beautiful park here in Salford, next to my house. So let's dive straight in. Both the first clause and the latter clause address cases in which proof is required, as even in the first clause, the worker must have witnesses testifying that he was actually hired. The Brighter does not mention it because it teaches with regard to proof that requires the employer to pay, but it does not teach with regard to proof that makes it possible for the worker to take an oath and receive payment. Rabbi Yomi Bar Abba says, after Rav's death, the sages sent the following message to Shmuel from the study hall of Rav. Our teacher instructs us with regard to a case where the craftsman says, "You fixed 2 coins as my payment," and the other employee says, "I fixed only 1 coin as your payment." Who takes an oath? Shmuel told them, in that case, the employee shall take an oath. If the employer who hired a worker claims that he fixed 2 coins as payment, while a hired worker claims that he fixed 3, the burden of proof rests upon the claimant. And therefore, if the hired worker cannot prove his claim, he cannot collect the higher amount. Nevertheless, even if the employer already paid what he said he owed, or told the worker, "Here is what I owe you," while giving him that sum, the employer takes an oath while holding a sacred object so as not to entirely discount the claim of the hired worker in accordance to the opinion of Shmuel and Rav Nachman. The Shach writes that the halacha is in accordance to the explanation of the Baal HaMa'or and the Rif, and that if the employer admits to part of a worker's claim, he takes an oath by Torah and is exempt from paying the part of the claim to which he does not admit. But if he denies the claim entirely, he takes only an oath of inducement. And that's the Rambam Sefer Mishpatim Hilchot Shevuot 11:7 Shulchan Aruch Mishpat 89:4 to support his claim, and the craftsman shall lose the difference. With regard to the fixing of wages, people will certainly remember. The sages instituted the oath taken by the worker where he claims that he had not been paid in a situation where it's reasonable to presume the employee is distracted and apt to forget. The Gemara asks, is that so? But doesn't Rabbi Shmuel teach in a Brighter, if there's a dispute with regard to some fixer's wages, the burden of proof rests upon the claimant, i.e. the craftsman, and if he does not bring proof, his claim is dismissed. The Gemara clarifies the difficulty. Why? Have the employer take an oath, and only then shall the craftsman lose the difference, in accordance to Shmuel's ruling. When Nachman said Shmuel teaches the Brighter disjunctively. Either the craftsman brings proof and receives the amount he claims, or the employee takes an oath and the craftsman loses the difference. The Gemara raised an objection to Shmuel's ruling from a Brighter with regard to one who gives his cloak to a craftsman. If the employee gives his cloak to a craftsman, and the craftsman claims that he fixed 2 coins as his payment, while the employee claims that he fixed only 1, as long as the cloak is in the possession of the craftsman and he can claim that he bought it, the craftsman takes an oath while holding a sacred object and receives payment of his claim, which can be any sum up to the value of the cloak. If the cloak is not in the craftsman's possession, or it is not possible for him to claim that he bought it, the proof of burden rests upon the claimant, and the craftsman cannot support his claim with proof. The employer takes an oath of inducement and is exempt. If he has admitted to part of the claim, he takes an oath by Torah. Rambam Sefer Mishpatim Hilchot Shevuot 11:8 Shulchan Aruch Mishpat 89:5 for mending. And then the craftsman says, "You fixed 2 dinars as my payment," and that one the owner says, "I fixed only 1 dinar as your payment." Then, so long as it is so that the cloak is in the possession of the craftsman, if the cloak is in the craftsman's possession, he can claim that it is his, which will put the customer in the category of a claimant, upon whom the burden of proof rests. It has been noted that this is not the halacha in all circumstances, because if witnesses can testify that the customer gave the cloak to him, the craftsman has no basis to claim that it is his, not even the claim of presumptive ownership, since the craftsman who handles the property of others on a regular basis cannot utilize such a presumption. It is incumbent upon the owner to prove that the fee was 1 dinar. If the craftsman gave the cloak back to him, then there are 2 scenarios. If the claim is lodged in its proper time, i.e. on the day of the cloak's return, then the craftsman takes an oath and he receives 2 dinars. But if its proper time passed, then the burden of proof rests upon the claimant, and the craftsman would need to bring proof that the fee was 2 dinars. The Gemara states the objection. In any event, the Brighter states that if the claim is lodged in its proper time, the craftsman takes an oath and receives his payment. According to Shmuel's ruling, why should this be so? The employer should take an oath. and the craftsman should lose the difference. Rav Nachman by Yitzchak said in response, according to his opinion, is this brighter? It is in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda, who says anytime that the basic obligation to take an oath is directed at the employer, as in this case, as he admits to part of a claim, the sage is instituted that the obligation to take an oath is transferred, and the hire worker takes an oath and receives his payment. But according to the opinion of the rabbis, the employer takes an oath and is exempted, as Shmuel ruled. The Gemara asks, to which statement of Rabbi Yehuda is Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak referring? If we say he's referring to the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda in the Mishnah 44b, how can that be? There he's being stringent and restricts the cases where the worker takes an oath and receives payment more so than the rabbis, as we learned in the Mishnah. And Rabbi Yehuda says the worker does not take an oath and receive payment without any other proof unless there is partial admission on the part of the employer with regard to payment of the wages. Rather, he is referring to the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda in the Braita as is taught, a hired worker, as long as the time allotted for him to receive his wages has not passed, takes an oath and receives the payment of his claim. And if not, i.e. the time has passed, he does not take an oath and receive payment. Rabbi Yehuda said, when does the worker take such an oath? It is in a situation where he said to his employer, give me my wages of 50 silver dinars, which are still in your possession, and the employer says you have already received a golden dinar equal to 25 silver dinars from them. The alternative, the worker said to him, you fixed 2 coins as my payment, and the employer says, I fixed only 1 coin as your payment. The price continues, but if the employer said to him, I never hired you, and he said to him, I hired you but gave you your wages, the burden of proof rests upon the claimant, i.e. the worker. Rabbi Yehuda rules that it is only when they disagree that the amount of wages owed to the employer, the wages owed to the worker, and the worker takes an oath and is claimed by his employer. Rav Sheisha, son of Ravidi, objects to this. But is this price, which says that the craftsman can take an oath about a sum fixed as the price, the opinion of only Rabbi Yehuda and not that of the rabbis? Now, where Rabbi Yehuda is stringent and restricts the opportunities of the worker to take an oath and receive payment in the Mishnah, the rabbis are lenient, granting the worker the right to take an oath as proof that he has not been paid. Then, in a case where Rabbi Yehuda is lenient in the dispute described in the Braita concerning the amount fixed as wages, granting the worker the right to take an oath as proof of his claim, would the rabbis be stringent with regard to the worker and grant the employer the right to take an oath and be exempt? The Gemara wonders, rather, what can be said? That the Braita is according to the opinion of the rabbis, but if so, then with regard to that Braita, that Rabba Bar Shmuel teaches that in a dispute about the sum fixed for the craftsman's wages, the burden of proof rests upon the claimant. His opinion is it? Is it not the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda? And it is not the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda, not that of the rabbis. According to Rabbi Yehuda, the craftsman takes an oath to prove his claim about the wage, and according to the rabbis, it's the employer who must take an oath to exempt himself from paying a higher wage. I'm a Rava. Now they disagree about this. Rabbi Yehuda holds that only in the case of an oath mandated by Torah law do the sages institute an ordinance for the benefit of the high worker that he can take an oath to support his claim. When the employer's claim contains an admission to part of the claim of the worker, the employer is required by Torah law to take an oath to support his claim. With regard to an oath mandated by rabbinic law, such as where the employer denies owing any money, where according to Shmuel he must take an oath, the original oath is already an ordinance, and we do not institute an ordinance to adjust an already instituted ordinance. And the rabbis hold that with regard to an oath mandated by rabbinic law, we also institute an ordinance for the benefit of the hired worker. With regard to a dispute about the amount fixed as wages, they maintain that the employer will remember the amount, and therefore he takes the oath and is exempt, as Shmuel ruled. According to Rabbi Yehuda, the worker takes the oath in that case, as the employer admits to part of the claim, and the sages transfer the oath to the worker as the means by which he can prove his claim. Rav Sheisha's objection is therefore not valid. The difference between Rabbi Yehuda and the rabbis is not that Rabbi Yehuda is more stringent, rather it relates to the circumstances under which they see fit to have the worker take the oath. The mission teaches how does the halacha of the worker taking an oath and receiving payment apply to one who was robbed. The case is where witnesses testify about the defendant that he entered the claimant's house to seize collateral from him without the authority to do so. The claimant said, you took items that belonged to me, and the defendant said, I did not take them. The claimant takes an oath and receives payment of his claim. The Gemara challenges, perhaps he did not seize anything as collateral from him. The witnesses testify only to the fact that he entered the house for that purpose. Doesn't Rav Nachman say, with regard to one who takes an axe? And there's a picture here if you have the Gemara on page 451. If you have the Stone Shelt edition, the image depicts the heads of the Roman axes or deliberate from the period of the Talmud found in Italy. This type of axe, which is served for chopping wood and other uses, is apparently the axe referred to in the Gemara. In his hand and says, I will go and chop down so-and-so's palm tree, and the palm tree is found chopped down and tossed on the ground. Do we say that he chopped it down, or rather we search for evidence? Evidently, a person is prone to bolster without acting. In a case where witnesses saw a person enter to take a homeowner's possessions, but we did not see him when he left, and did not see that he was carrying anything when he left, and the homeowner claims that he took specific items of his, then even if the defendant claims that he never entered the house, which contradicts the witness's testimony, he is exempt from payment. If he claims that he entered but took nothing, he must take an oath of inducement and he then took nothing. The oath is accepted because it is possible that he entered intending to steal but did not do so, as is evident from the Gemara's question in Be'or HaGra. The Torah rules that since the witnesses contradict him, he is not deemed credible and is not trusted to take an oath, as this would be a meager counterclaim to the testimony of witnesses, and the homeowner takes an oath to receive payment from the Rambam Sefer Nezikin, Hegazeda Vaveda 44, and Choshen Mishpat 92. On his threat. Here also it could be that he was blustering about seeking collateral, but he did not act on it. The Gemara answers, say that the case of them in the Mishnah where the witnesses testified that he entered the house and seized collateral from him. The Gemara asks, if so, let us ask the witnesses and see what items he seized the collateral from him, and there will be no need for an oath. Rabbi Baba Hana said that Rabbi Yochanan said, this is a case where one claimed the defendant took items. If witnesses testified that a person entered another's home to seize collateral without permission, and had nothing beneath his garments when he entered, but had unidentified items beneath his garments when he left, the homeowner claims that he took specific items of his. The homeowner takes an oath while holding a sacred object and receives payment of his claim. This is the halacha even if the defendant claims that he never entered the house, or that he entered intending to seize collateral but did not do so, and the items beneath his garments belong to him. This is also halacha if he claims that he seized only specific items, and the homeowner claims that he seized more. And it is so even if the witnesses testify about specific items, and the homeowner claims that the defendant seized other items that they did not see. And that's from the Rambam Sefer Nezikin, Hilchot Gezeidah Aveda 42, Choshen Mishpat 91. They can be carried beneath his garments, and the witnesses could not see what they were. Rabbi Yehuda says, concerning a similar topic, if witnesses saw a person who entered another's house, concealed an item beneath his garments and left, this is moving on to Amud B, and then that person says they were purchased, and this is why they're in possession, he's not incredible. I'm going to finish there, and if you want to see the next part, please feel free. All the best. Bye.